Another year of animated features has gone by, showing the incredible imagination of the filmmakers and artists involved in bringing these movies to the screen. Whether pushing what animation is capable of, or just telling a simple fun story for younger audiences, there was quite a bit to appreciate this year, either in theaters or on a streaming service. So as usual, I'll count down my favorites of the year, starting with Migration. I have a fondness for Benjamin Renner's animated films about talking animals who get into hijinks, and he provided us with another one as part of this collaboration with Illumination. It's a simple story, nicely told, as his family of ducks heads to Jamaica, and we see the scrapes they get into. The movie zips us from one place to the next, and there's a decent variety of scenarios and gags. The interactions between the mallards provide joy, as does when they meet other characters like a parrot in a cage and a tough pigeon leader. The villain, a chef at a fancy restaurant, becomes someone we can root against, and he has his own specific design and approach that stands out. The animation adds a further charm to the movie, especially when the ducks take flight and we see them swoop through all sorts of areas. There's a certain breezy quality I admire in the movies produced by Illumination, and it's neat to see them work with Renner to bring us his next funny animal tale. Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie. Despite never having seen a single episode of the incredibly popular Paw Patrol television series, I've quite enjoyed the two big screen movies based on it. In this sequel, the pups are turned into superheroes, and there's fun to be had as they utilize their specific superpowers. Director Carl Brunker did a good job of directing these action sequences and providing the needed excitement as the dogs attempt to save the day. The main villain, a scientist who wants to meet her, is also a lot of fun, with Taraji P. Henson going all out with her vocal performance. She even teams up with the mayor from the first movie, and they have some enjoyable and humorous interactions. The filmmaker is able to dig into Sky the dog's backstory, and that leads to a few sentimental moments. Liberty also gets focused as the only dog not given superpowers and how she copes with that. The superhero escapades allowed Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie, to go to new territory and provided another entertaining adventure. Diary of a Wimpy Kid Christmas Cabin Fever, the third entry in this series of adaptations created for Disney+. This makes that familiar Wimpy Kid style of humor with some nice holiday sentiment. There's a lot of humor out of the family being snowed in and how each heavily reacts to this situation. Greg's own arc of dealing with the guilt of ruining a snowplow is well explored, and he gets some funny moments with his friend Rowley and a plush elf that seems to keep following him around. We also have Roderick still messing with Greg and having his own problems. Cabin Fever is well paced through its hour-long runtime, and the ending is particularly sweet, falling nicely in line with the sorts of messages we see in animated Christmas movies, but without losing the bite Jeff Kinney is known for. All this is probably the closest a Wimpy Kid production comes to making us feel sympathetic for Greg. The animation style also suited the holiday theme. This thus becomes a solid addition to the franchise and a fun adaptation of the book. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. One of the best things about this incarnation of the Heroes in a Half Shell is that they're portrayed as teenagers for once, and that allows it to stand out among entries in this franchise. The bond between the four turtles is believably done, and the movie does a good job of exploring them finding their place in the world. Jeff Rowe directed the film with a lot of energy, and animation style was particularly inventive. Set to be inspired by a teenager's sketchbook, the scratchiness and unorthodox presentation give it such a visual uniqueness. The other characters that populate the film also leave a memorable impression. April O'Neil, being an aspiring journalist, is nicely done, as is her friendship with the Turtles. The main villain, Superfly, is definitely someone who is easy to dislike, and the other mutants have a lot of personality too. Throughout it are also themes about prejudice and how the world can unfortunately be a cruel one, but that does not mean there are not those who can lend a helping hand. The end leaves the door open for a sequel, and it will be interesting to see where the Ninja Turtles go from here. Elemental. Peter Sung told a personal story with this movie about two elements who fall in love, and the result is a sweet romantic comedy. The relation between Ember and Wade is nicely developed throughout the film, and I especially like how the movie is primarily interested in pleasant vibes. The imagination on display in Element City is remarkable with so many creative ways of how these different elements reside together. A lot of thought has clearly been put into how this society functions and how these various communities thrive. The Pixar animators and technical team also continue to impress with where they push computer animation. Many of the humorous bits land as well. The allegory and immigration is well explored, and something I particularly admired was how it depicted Ember's relationship with her parents. Instead of going for the usual trope where she hates that she's pushed to work in the family business, they have that be something she genuinely aspires to and has an interest in. Lately, Pixar has been producing a lot of personal movies, with the director putting a lot of themselves into them, and Elemental provided another delightful and touching example of this. Wish, a beautiful celebration of Disney animation, directors Chris Buck and Fonvir Sunthorn crafted this nice throwback to classic Disney, with many of the ingredients we have come to associate with the Mouse House. The concept of this kingdom where people wait for their wishes to be granted is an intriguing one, and Asha is a likable protagonist who learns that maybe their king is not nearly as benevolent as he appears. King Magnifico becomes a fascinating villain in his own right, basically a dictator paranoid of anything slightly rocking the boat, and being a little too power-hungry with his system being the only person with any say in who gets their wish granted. Other characters like Asha's 7 friends, her goat Valentino, and a magical wishing star bring their own joys to the story. The animation style has a pleasing appearance, and it'll be interesting to see how the Disney artists continue to play with it in the future. The songs by Julia Michaels and Benjamin Rice are a charming assortment, with the I Want song, I Wish, serving as my favorite. The villain song, This Is the Thanks I Get, and the Revolutionary March, Knowing What We Know Now, are other standouts on the soundtrack. Wish has many of the magical qualities I associate with Disney, and I felt the filmmakers made a story worthy of the incredible 100-year legacy of the studio. The Boy and the Heron. Coming out of retirement for the 50th time, Hayao Miyazaki directed yet another beautiful animated film that whisks the viewer away to another fantastical world. While characters who come across strange magical beings is a frequent aspect of his work, what's great is how different each one is, and he never feels like he repeats himself even with the recurring themes in his movies. Each world Mahito goes to is something awe-inspiring or dangerous in it, whether it's cute little white blobs or warmongering parakeets. All the while, the story explores the subject of grief and how Mahito copes with what has happened to his mother. His interactions with a heron provide some of the highlights as their unusual relationship develops. Unsurprisingly, for Miyazaki, the images are absolutely striking and fantastic, with one eye-catching scene after another, and it's all accompanied by another terrific score from Joe Hisaishi. As a piece of stunning animation, remarkable imagination, and emotional poignancy, The Boy and the Heron presents another impressive movie from one of the masters of animation. Chicken Run, Dawn the Nugget. I'm a huge fan of the first Chicken Run, so a sequel coming 23 years later has a lot to live up to. Thankfully, director Sam Phelps crafted a continuation that does a great job of expanding the concept and themes from its predecessor. While that one told a prisoner of war camp story, Dawn the Nugget shows what happens after someone escapes a situation like that. The trauma and fear from that never goes away, and the sequel depicts how, as terrible as it is, it's also necessary to make sure the next generation knows about it. Both Ginger and her daughter Molly's arcs are well explored as each deal with the return of Mrs. Tweedy in different ways. The film also shows how Tweedy has her own reaction to the events from the first movie, and how she has tweaked her plan to cook more chickens. The creativity is still there with how Sam Fell, the writers, and the artists at Aardman utilize this new high-tech chicken farm. The way the chickens are separated off into own little groups allows for even more gags, and I like how their specific subplots build and build as they go further into this facility. Chicken Run, Dawn the Nugget is a sequel that earns its place alongside the first one and provides another funny adventure with those birds. The Super Mario Bros. Movie. Lovingly adapting the classic Nintendo video games, Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic directed the delightful ride that understood the appeal of the Mushroom Kingdom and those two plumbers. At its core, it's the familiar story of Mario going through the kingdom to stop the evil Bowser from taking over. However, it also represents that feeling we all get when we start playing a video game and the trial and error involved from navigating the different levels and learning how to get past the obstacles and enemies. The character relationships are nicely done too, from the brotherly bond between Mario and Luigi to the connection formed with Mario and Princess Peach. Bowser is an entertaining villain too, with Jack Black becoming the standout of the cast. The Illumination artists deserve a lot of credit for adapting decades of Mario iconography into this animated film, and Brian Tyler did a lovely job of incorporating Koji Kondo's themes as well as his own great pieces. As a longtime fan, I was smiling through pretty much the entire runtime, and it gave me the Super Mario Bros. Movie I've been waiting a long time for. It was definitely one of the most fun times I had in the theater this year, although watching it at home absolutely did not lessen the enjoyment factor. Nimona. It was already wonderful to see this movie rise from the ashes, but that turned out so well makes it even more special. Directors Nick Bruno and Troy Quayne did a great job of transferring N.D. Stevenson's graphic novel to the screen and giving it so much heart and humor. The growing friendship with Nimona and Ballister is done with plenty of great comedy, but we also understand the tragedy of both of these characters and feel sympathy for them and everything they have to deal with. I'm especially a fan of Nimona, a firecracker of a shapeshifter given the right level of spunk by the animators and Chloe Grace Moretz's vocal performance. When the movie digs into her backstory though, we see the sadness underneath and the heartbreak she's had to deal with. There's a montage that's probably one of the saddest scenes I've seen in a movie this year. Knowing N.D. Stevenson is a trans man creates an additional subtext about Nimona's character and the horrible prejudice she is subjected to. The concept of this high-tech medieval society is really inventive, and I love the different ways they merge those two together. The animation style is also great, with each character having a look that perfectly fits them. Nimona is a film with themes that are sure to speak to a specific type of person who relate to its title character, but there's also universality to its message that'll make this film worth coming back to multiple times. And my number one favorite animated movie of 2023 is SpiderMan Across the Spider-Verse. The first Spider-Verse movie was an impressive use of the iconic Marvel superhero and a fantastic take on the multiverse concept. With the sequel, the filmmakers have taken it to the next level. Even with everything being thrown at the audience, the story is still a coherent one, and it moves at a terrific clip through its 2 hours and 20 minutes. Each scene is pivotal to developing both Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy's arcs and the problems they have to deal with in their specific universes. Miguel O'Hara is a fascinating antagonist, so intent on keeping everything to a canon event, but maybe a bit too obsessively so, and that makes him a fully rounded obstacle for Miles. The other new Spider people, like a punk Spider-Man and an Indian Spider-Man, also leave a memorable impression. The animation is taken to incredible new places as we see so many cross together. Whether depicting an action sequence or a more dialogue-driven scene, they're perfectly adjusted to fit what these characters are going through. All the animators on this movie deserve so much credit for pulling off everything we see on screen. Kudos to Joaquim dos Santos, Cam Powers, and Justin K. Thompson for the directing on this film too, and making it all work to tremendous effect. Ending on quite the cliffhanger, it will certainly be interesting to see where Miles Morales and his friends go in the next Spider-Verse movie, whenever that ends up reaching screens. 2023 was another great year for animated features, and looking ahead to next year, it looks like we'll have plenty of exciting animated films to look forward to. There are of course returning characters like Po the Kung Fu Panda, Gru and the Minions, Wallace and Gromit, the emotions in Riley's head, the Looney Tunes, the Transformers, and Mufasa. Garfield will be getting his first theatrical animated feature, while an animated film set in the world of Lord of the Rings is also coming our way. DreamWorks is giving us movies about a child's fear of the dark and a shipwrecked robot, Locksmith Animation has a Christmas movie, Skydance is working on a fantasy musical of Alan Menken songs, and Genndy Tartakovsky has his long-awaited adult comedy about a dog who's going to be neutered. And those are just the tip of the iceberg. Now let me know in the comments what your favorite animated movies of 2023 are, and I'll see you next time.